The glow from my phone cut through the dark of my downtown apartment a little after 11 that night, March 8th. I was crunching numbers, half distracted, when the phone buzzed so hard against the coffee table it made my wine glass tremble. Motion detected. Koi Pond. South Garden. I didn't freak out. That's not my style. Instead, I put down my pen, picked up the phone, and opened the security app, same way I review contracts, calm and steady. The night vision camera snapped on, and everything came into focus. There was the koi pond I'd built myself, the gravel patterns I raked every week, those ancient podocarpus trees that cost me more than some people's cars. And standing there, right next to my $75,000 water feature, holding wine glasses that caught the moonlight like knives, my little sister Chloe and her fiancé Asher. I turned up the volume. Their voices came through, clear as day. Asher waved at the water, working that real estate agent swagger he uses to sell overpriced condos. "It's a gold mine," he said. "The foreign investors get here on the 10th at 2. They need to spend the money before the quarter closes, so they'll jump at this. Once they see this garden, they'll add $600,000 to the offer easy. After that, we kick Elara to the curb. Deal's done." Chloe laughed, that high, fake laugh I've heard in 100 of her Instagram stories. She's going to lose her mind. But who cares? It's Mom and Dad's deed. Anything planted in the ground belongs to the land, right? She looked at Asher. "That's what you said." "Exactly," he replied. "Fixtures become real estate. Basic property law." You'd think my heart would race, but honestly, it slowed down. I took a screenshot. Then another. I saved the video and backed it up 3 different places. The timestamp said they wanted to sell my garden at 2 p.m. on the 10th. Too bad my showroom was set to close at that exact time. I'm 42. I run Verdant Vanguard Designs, designing landscapes for Fortune 500 campuses, boutique hotels, and estates so exclusive you won't find them in any listing. They're sold through quiet nods at private clubs. My family? They see me as a glorified gardener. They've never understood what happened 7 years ago when my father, Lawrence, called me into his study, using that voice he reserves for favors disguised as family business. Back then, I signed a real contract. My lawyer, David Ross, drafted it. I put up $475,000 of my own money to turn their embarrassing backyard into what the contract called a live showroom facility. They got a 5-star garden for nothing. I got a place to show VIP clients the real thing, not just sketches and dreams. For 15 years, I'd keep it up for free, but I kept ownership of everything, every plant, every stone. If they broke the deal or put my assets at risk, I could pull out every last tree. My dad signed while watching football. My mom signed without reading past the first line. They thought it was just free landscaping from their daughter. I was building a high 6-figure portfolio in plain sight. That memory hit hard. Just a day and a half ago, at Chloe's engagement party, the backyard buzzing with string lights and forced laughter, Asher had cornered me at the bar. The music was way too loud, some top 40 song Chloe insisted on, and everyone was on their 3rd glass of champagne. Asher shoved a stack of papers at me. "Just a permit for the patio extension, Elara," he yelled over the music, whiskey on his breath. "Sign the 3rd page. Quick favor." I was exhausted. That morning, I'd hauled a giant birch into the city for a client, and my shoulders still ached. I took the pen without thinking. "Here?" I asked, pointing at a line someone had flagged with a pink sticky note. "Perfect. You're a lifesaver." I signed because they were family. That's what you do, right? Now I'm sitting alone in my apartment, the video glowing on my screen, and it all clicks. Somewhere in that pile of paperwork, probably buried in the middle, tucked between permit applications and city forms, there was a waiver. It said I acknowledged the upcoming sale. It said I gave up any claim to improvements on the property. In Asher's mind, that made swiping $475,000 worth of my work perfectly legal. He got 2 things wrong. First, I never sign anything without reading it. Not at parties, not when I'm exhausted, never. That waiver, whatever it said, would have my signature in the wrong spot, or the wrong date, or some other fatal flaw I'd left behind on instinct, even half asleep. Second, I didn't need a contract to protect myself. I already had one. I always cover my bases. I didn't call Chloe to scream at her. That's what the crazy older sister would do, the role they've been dying to cast me in since we were kids. Too sensitive. Too intense. Can't take a joke. Instead, I scrolled through my contacts and called David Ross. He picked up on the second ring. David always answers. That's why his bill makes my accountant sweat. Elara, it's 11 at night. This better be good. David, I said, keeping my voice calm, almost friendly. Remember that consignment agreement we drafted for the Thorne estate showroom? The one your parents signed without reading? Yes. I need you to prep the asset recovery protocols. We've got 39 hours. He paused. I could hear the shift in his tone, the moment he realized his evening just got interesting. What happened? They're selling the house on March 10th at 2 p.m. foreign investors. All cash. They're trying to include my inventory as part of the real estate to jack up the price. Can you prove it? I have a video confession. High def. Time-stamped. Longer pause. Then David laughed, a sharp, quick sound, like a blade flicking open. Forward everything. I'll have the docs ready by 8 a.m. Elara? Yes? This is going to be beautiful. I hung up and went back to the security footage. I watched it 3 more times, memorizing every word, every gesture. Chloe's careless laugh. Asher's greedy grin. By the 4th run-through, I didn't feel a thing. That's how I knew I was ready. Dawn broke over the city on March 9th, bruised purple light turning frost on my windows into burning crystal. I'd been up for hours, camped at my dining table with my laptop, surrounded by 7 years of invoices, contracts, and botanical certifications. When I walked into David's office just after 8, the city was wide awake, totally unaware of the war I was about to start. David's office was on the 58th floor of a glass tower in the financial district, the kind of place where the receptionist's desk cost more than a car, and the coffee came from beans with some story about monks and mountain air. David was 55, gray-haired, and carried that special smile of someone who actually enjoys tearing people apart in court. He was smiling now. You weren't exaggerating, he said, nodding at the screen, where my security footage kept looping. This is prosecutorial-grade evidence. Your brother-in-law-to-be is a moron. He's a real estate agent, I said, settling into the leather chair. He understands property law the way a line cook understands chemistry, just enough to do damage. Walk me through the botanical angle again. This is where we win. I opened my laptop and pulled up the technical files, cross-sections of root systems, photos of underground installations, certification docs from horticultural engineers. Asher's whole plan hangs on the legal idea of fixtures. In property law, anything attached permanently to the land, anything rooted in the soil, becomes part of the real estate. If I'd planted those trees right in the ground, he'd be right. They'd belong to whoever owns the deed. But you didn't. No. Every single high-value tree on that property, every ancient podocarpus, every Japanese maple, every ornamental pear, is planted inside what we call root control bags. Industrial-grade fabric containers that stop the roots from spreading into the native soil. To anyone looking, the trees look like they're planted normally. Underground, they're basically in giant pots. I spun the diagram on the screen, showing where the specimen roots ended and the earth began. Biologically and legally, their roots never touched my parents' land. The trees aren't fixtures. Their chattel, yeah, all the movable stuff, was technically just on loan to the estate under a temporary display deal. It's always belonged to Verdant Vanguard Designs. Always has. David leaned back in his chair, fingers pressed together, studying me. You can prove this? He asked. I've got installation records, purchase receipts, and third-party certification from horticultural engineers. Every tree, every shrub, every blade of ornamental grass. All documented as inventory. He frowned. What about the koi pond? Portable water feature. The liner, the filtration system, the lighting, everything's removable. The fish, too. Verdant Vanguard assets. I've tagged each koi with RFID. They're worth $75,000, David. Not pets inventory. He started grinning. You magnificent, paranoid genius. I prefer thorough. We spent the next hour going over the contract I'd signed with my father 7 years ago. David had drafted it himself, and, honestly, reading it now was like watching a chess grandmaster walk you through their winning game 12 moves back. Clause 7. Verdant Vanguard Designs keeps full ownership of all plants, water features, and installation materials on the property for display. They stay ours. We can remove everything if the client ends the agreement or if asset security is at risk. Clause 12. Acceleration Clause. If the deal ends before the 15-year term, all waived maintenance fees come due immediately. Monthly maintenance fee schedules in Appendix C. I'd never charged my parents a dime for maintenance. For 7 years, I donated about 20 hours a week, keeping that garden perfect. Pruning, fertilizing, pest control, irrigation, swapping out plantings for the seasons. The contract spelled out that it was free for 15 years, unless they broke the deal early. Pull up Appendix C, David said. I opened it. The fee schedule came up on screen. $1,200 a month, going up 5% a year for inflation. 7 years at an average of $1,450 a month. That's around $121,800 in waived fees. Add removal costs, David said, voice low. Crane rental, labor, equipment, transport. Another $35,000 easy. And penalties for breaking the contract, he went on, let's be conservative, $25,000. So, call it $181,800. Make it $225,000, I said. Add emergency relocation fees, compensation for business disruption. I'll have to cancel client meetings to deal with this. $225,000 it is. David pulled out a legal pad and started writing. If they don't pay in 30 days, you file a mechanic's lien against the property. House gets frozen. They can't sell, refinance, or transfer the deed. It stays public, like a scarlet letter, until they pay up. I watched him write, his fountain pen scratching expensive paper. I said quietly, David, Asher and Chloe think they're going to kick me out and pocket $600,000 of my work. I know. My parents are letting it happen. They didn't even warn me. They're complicit. David stopped writing and looked up, his face softening. Elara, this isn't revenge. This is asset protection. You invested $475,000 and 7 years of skilled labor. They're trying to steal from you, plain and simple. Taking back your property is the most rational, professional thing to do. Don't let anyone tell you different. I nodded. My throat felt tight. When do you want to move? He asked. Tomorrow afternoon. 2 p.m. same time as the showing? No, right before. I want to be pulling out as they pull in. That afternoon, I headed back to Verdant Vanguard Design's main facility, a 5-acre spread in the warehouse district. Greenhouses, equipment yards, 62 skilled workers. These weren't just employees. They were craftsmen. Arborists who could spot a tree disease by touch, irrigation specialists who understood water flow the way musicians understand Bach, equipment operators who could guide a crane hook through a 6-inch gap without leaving a scratch. They stuck with me because I paid them well, respected them, and never asked them to cut corners. I gathered the senior crew in the main office. Marcus, my head arborist. Jenny, who ran logistics. Tom, who could move heavy machinery like it was an extension of himself. Emergency relocation, I said. No small talk. Site, Thorne Estate. Time, tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m. We're pulling everything, every tree, the pond, irrigation, the works. Full asset recovery. Marcus raised an eyebrow. He's 60, been in landscaping longer than I've been alive, and has no patience for drama. Your parents' place, he said. No question in his voice. Yes. Are they selling? Trying to, and they've listed our inventory as part of the property value. He just nodded, slow. You want the crane truck? I want all 4. I want the water tankers. Every flatbed, every piece of extraction gear we've got. I want this to look like a military op. Jenny already had her tablet out, pulling up schedules. We'll have to cancel the Wellington job. Cancel it. Tell them we'll comp half for the trouble. Elara, Tom said, careful, if we pull those mature trees with root bags, we're going to leave some big holes. I know. The lawn's going to look like Swiss cheese. I'm counting on it. That's when they got it. Marcus let out a sharp, rare smile. How much time do we have? 20 hours. He nodded. Then we'd better get moving. By sunset, every machine was checked, fueled, and staged in the yard. The crew ran the extraction sequence twice. We loaded the tankers with holding tanks for the koi. Got the straps, the rigging, the support structures ready for trees worth more than most people make in a year. I stood out in the yard as the sun bled out, watching my team move with surgical precision, prepping for something big. My phone rang. Mom's name on the screen. I picked up. Elara, honey. Her voice was sweet, the way she talked when she wanted something. Can you come by early? Around 1? Asher's got some friends coming to see the house. Maybe you could trim the hedges? Make it look nice for your sister? Friends, not buyers. Not investors. She was lying. They all knew what tomorrow was, and they wanted me to play the good daughter, one last time, make their stolen garden look perfect for the people who'd helped them profit from it. That life finished off whatever guilt I'd been carrying. Don't worry, Mom, I said, all warm and innocent. Tomorrow afternoon, the garden look exactly the way it's supposed to. Oh, wonderful, you're such a good daughter. I don't know what we'd do without you. I hung up. No goodbye. Back to my office, David had sent the final paperwork. I printed it all. The consignment agreement, tech certs, maintenance invoice $225,000 in bold red at the bottom. Everything went into a binder, colored tabs, legal, organized, unarguable. One last page, a company directive on Verdant Vanguard Designs letterhead. Asset security compromised. Immediate retrieval authorized. I signed and dated it March 9th, put it right in front. Tomorrow, I wasn't going to be the hurt daughter, or the betrayed sister, or the eldest child everyone underestimated. I'd be the CEO of a $4.5 million company reclaiming stolen property. I didn't sleep, but it wasn't nerves. My brain just wouldn't quit, running through logistics, backup plans, thinking about every reaction I'd get. When my alarm buzzed at 6 o'clock, I'd already watched the sky go from black to gray to gold through my window. I dressed with purpose, work boots, dark jeans, company jacket with the Verdant Vanguard Designs logo right over my heart. In the mirror, I saw what I needed to see, not a daughter, but someone here for business. By 9, I was at the warehouse. The crew was already there. Marcus handed me coffee, silent, like he knew some mornings don't need words. We ran through the plan one last time. Convoy for crane trucks, 3 flatbeds, 2 water tankers, my pickup. We'd park down the street at 1:45. At my signal, we'd go in and start the sequence. Trees first, starting with the most valuable. Then the koi pond. Then the irrigation system. Should take 2 hours tops. Remember, I told them, we're not wrecking anything. We're taking what belongs to us. What's ours leaves with us. What's left belongs to the property owner. Got it? 62 voices, all at once, clear. Let's go get our trees. We rolled out at 1 o'clock, 10 trucks rumbling down the highway, turning heads. I led in my pickup, the whole convoy following behind, steel and chrome in my rear view. We reached my parents' neighborhood, that kind of place in the rolling hills where lawns go on forever and every house has a 3-car garage. The houses around here? The kind real estate agents love to call estate properties. Price tags in the high millions. I pulled off onto a quiet side street, just close enough to see my parents' driveway. Killed the engine. Everything went still behind me. Tom hopped down from his crane truck and knocked on my window. "We wait?" he asked. "We wait." I took out my phone and opened my notes app. I'd been keeping track of everything, timestamps, videos, bits of conversation. Documentation is armor. Evidence is power. At 1:47 p.m., something caught my eye. A pack of black SUVs rolled onto the street, like a motorcade, with a silver Maybach gliding after them. That car alone probably cost more than my entire cruise equipment. The way they moved, you could tell, this was money that didn't remember what it was like to wait for anything. I grabbed my binoculars. Watched the SUVs and the Maybach sweep into my parents' circular driveway. Doors opened. Men in sharp, expensive suits stepped out, 3 of them, plus a woman in a camel hair coat worth more than my crew made in a month. They walked like people who always got what they wanted. Asher showed up at the front door, grinning so wide I could see it from here. He wore a suit I'd never seen, a new one, bought just for today. Chloe was next to him, looking perfect for Instagram in her designer dress, smile locked in place. Then my dad. Then my mom. Both of them looked like they were heading to a country club gala, not a business meeting. Asher, ever the host, pointed the investors toward the backyard, leading them through the side gate. Soon, they'd be standing by my koi pond, soaking in the view of Japanese maples reflected in the water, probably doing the math on how much extra they'd pay for a garden like that. 1:55 p.m. I checked my watch. Picked up my radio. All units, this is Elara. Move out. 10 diesel engines roared to life behind me, a deep, thunderous wave of sound. I led the convoy around the corner, rolling up to the estate like a liberation force. At exactly 2 p.m., the lead crane truck backed through the open gate, its beeper blaring through the afternoon. I caught Asher's head whipping around. I watched his face morph, confusion, recognition, then pure, perfect horror. He bolted. I climbed down from my truck and strolled toward the backyard, 3-ring binder under my arm. My crew followed, each knowing their job. Marcus wrangling tree removal, Jenny guiding the equipment, Tom setting up the crane. The backyard didn't look anything like it had the last time I was here. White tents, cocktail tables, classical music floating out from hidden speakers. The investors stood on the patio with champagne, gazing at the garden like they were sizing up a Monet. Asher reached me at the gate, pale and already sweating through that expensive suit. Elara. His voice cracked. What are you? You can't. I have clients here. I didn't even look at him. I walked straight past, headed for the investors. They'd turned to watch, curiosity flickering in their eyes. The kind of people who don't get surprised much. I pulled out a small megaphone, nothing dramatic, just enough to be heard over the trucks. Good afternoon, gentlemen, madam. Sorry for the interruption. I'm Elara Thorne, owner and CEO of Verdant Vanguard Designs. I kept it professional. Smiled even. The garden you're admiring isn't part of the real estate. It belongs to my company. It's here under a temporary display agreement, and that agreement is now over due to asset security concerns. This viewing is finished. One of the investors, older man, silver hair, the kind of stillness that only comes with serious money, raised an eyebrow. And you are? I'm the landscape architect who designed and installed everything you see. I'm also the homeowner's daughter. And I'm about to remove $475,000 worth of company property. Asher had found his voice again. He started shouting, waving his arms at a bored-looking police officer standing nearby, probably there for security. This is insane, officer. Arrest her, she's trespassing. She's destroying property. The officer wandered over, hand resting on his belt, looking like he'd seen it all before. He looked about 50, the sort of guy whose face had been carved up by years of family squabbles and rich folks' headaches. Ma'am, what's going on here? He asked. I didn't bother arguing or explaining. Just opened my binder, flipped it to the right spot, and handed it over. Tab 1, Consignment Agreement, signed by the property owner, confirming Verdant Vanguard Designs owned every botanical specimen and installation on the place. Tab 2, a technical certification from horticultural engineers, stating every tree sat in root control barriers. Basically, they were movable, not part of the real estate. Tab 3, proof of ownership for all the koi receipts, RFID tracking, the works. He took his time, flipping through the tabs, his face shifting, skeptical at first, then getting it, eventually landing on a sort of grudging professional respect. He shut the binder and turned to Asher. Sir, this is a civil matter about personal property. She's got paperwork showing these trees and installations are company assets. I can't stop her from taking what's hers. But she's ruining the sale, Asher protested. That's a civil issue, sir. Not a crime. Asher's face went through a whole paint swatch of colors. Behind him, my mom had showed up, hand clamped over her mouth in shock. Dad stood out on the patio, frozen with a champagne glass in his hand, his expression blank. I glanced back at the investors. They watched the scene with that glued-to-the-TV look you'd expect at a car crash. I tried to keep it professional. Sorry for the disruption. If you're still interested in the property, I'd suggest coming back after we've sorted this out. The silver-haired investor gave a sly little smile, like he'd just been entertained instead of inconvenienced. I think we've seen enough. Good luck with your business, Miss Thorne. They strolled away, unhurried, like this was just a bit of theater instead of a disaster. I waited till they'd reached the gate. Then I turned to Marcus. Time to get to work. Extract everything. The first crane swung into place beside the oldest podocarpus tree, a 50-year-old beauty I'd hunted down from a nursery in New Zealand, shipped across the world, and installed with all the care you'd give to a museum piece. 90 grand easy. It was the heart of the garden. Tom ran the crane, steady hands, no nonsense. The straps looped around the trunk, careful not to scrape the bark. Hydraulics hissed. The tree started to lift, slow and sure, the sound of wet earth giving way. Mom gasped. Thanks to the root control bag, everything stayed tight, no chaos, no roots tearing through soil. The whole root ball lifted in its fabric cradle, neat as you please, like unplugging a giant cork. It left behind a perfect, dark circle in the grass. Not so much a hole as a missing puzzle piece in a complicated machine. Secure it and move to specimen 2, I said into my radio. And the ballet went on. Another tree lifted. Another black circle appeared in the lawn. Then came the Japanese maples, then the ornamental cherries. Understory plantings next, tens of thousands of dollars worth, all loaded up with the kind of efficiency you only get from a crew who's done this before. Chloe showed up at my side, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Elara, please. Please stop. We can talk. We can work something out. I didn't look at her. There's nothing to work out. I'm reclaiming my property. But the garden was never yours. Behind us, the pumps roared to life. My crew dropped them into the koi pond, and water started draining into the tanker truck almost immediately. Each koi, tagged, accounted for, worth hundreds or thousands, scooped up and transferred to holding tanks with professional care. As the water level dropped, the pond's real face came out, just an ugly concrete basin, algae stains, PVC pipes, and electrical wires everywhere. Without the water and the careful balance I'd kept, it looked like what it was, an empty, aging hole. When it finished draining, the pond sat there, exposed and miserable, like a swimming pool in winter. One of the investors, the woman in the camel coat, paused at the gate to watch. She took in the mess, looked at Asher, shook her head, something between disgust and pity, and walked off. The Maybach's engine started. The rest of the SUVs followed, and just like that, they were gone. No goodbyes. The sale was dead. The sun was lower now, and the backyard looked like a storm had torn through, except the house stood untouched, and all the damage was neatly contained to the garden. 9 dark, perfect holes marked the lawn where the old trees used to stand. The koi pond was nothing but a bare concrete bowl now, algae stains running down the sides. Trenches from the irrigation system cut across the grass, sharp and surgical. The stone paths I'd laid years ago were still there, but they led nowhere, just winding around empty spaces. My crew worked like this was just another job. No gawking, no whispering. They loaded up the equipment, strapped things down, moved to the next spot. For them, this was business. Weird business, sure, but still just a job. I stood in the middle of what used to be the Zen gravel garden, now just a patch of torn-up earth, and watched my father walk toward me. He moved slowly, like every step was a surprise. His fancy shoes made a wet, sucking sound in the mud. Elara? His voice sounded raw. What have you done? I kept my voice steady. I recovered company property. Section 7, subsection B of the consignment agreement you signed 7 years ago. He stared at me, his shock giving way to the anger I knew was coming. You destroyed your sister's future. You ruined the sale. You humiliated us in front of investors. All because he was struggling for words, his face turning red. Because you had to count pennies with your own family. Behind him, Chloe was sobbing on the patio. Asher sat on the steps, head in his hands. My mother stood in the doorway, looking like someone had just told her the world was ending and forgot to warn her first. I reached into my bag and took out a manila envelope. Red ink on the front, bold and obvious. This is the invoice for services rendered. 7 years of landscape maintenance, fees waived under our agreement. But since you tried to sell before the contract was up, the acceleration clause kicks in. All those waived fees now due. I handed him the envelope. His hands shook as he opened it. 7 years of monthly maintenance, I went on. At $1,200 a month, with a 5% annual increase for inflation. That's $121,800. Add $35,000 for emergency extraction, $25,000 for breach of contract penalties, $43,200 for business disruption and relocation. Totals $225,000. He just stared at the number at the bottom. $225,000, he whispered. You're charging your own family $225,000? I'm charging a client who broke a contract and tried to steal $475,000 in assets. Yes, we would have given you a cut of the sale. No, you wouldn't have. I heard Asher say it. Once the ink dries, we kick Elara to the curb. His face went blank. You heard? I have security cameras. You think I'd leave $75,000 worth of koi fish unprotected? The whole conversation's on video. Timestamped. Cloud backup. Legally admissible. Chloe had stopped crying. Now she was just staring at me, and it wasn't friendly. You were spying on us? I was protecting my assets. You got caught planning theft. Family doesn't treat family like this. My mother finally spoke, her voice cracking. We raised you, we fed you, we put you through college, and this is how you repay us? With lawyers and invoices and humiliation? That word hung in the air. Humiliation. I looked at her, really looked, and something inside me just broke. You didn't put me through college, I said quietly. I did that on scholarships and loans. Paid them off 5 years ago. You didn't raise me to be successful. You raised me to be useful. The good daughter. The one who fixes things and never asks for anything. I gestured at the mess. I put $475,000 into this property. I worked 20 hours a week for 7 years. I brought you clients, gave you prestige, added $750,000 in value to your house. And your response was to steal it and sell it, without even a warning. We weren't stealing. Yes, you were. You just thought I wouldn't notice, or that I'd be too polite to stop you. I picked up my bag and started for the truck. My father called after me. Elara, we can't pay this. We don't have $225,000. I stopped at the gate and turned back. The afternoon sun lit up the wreckage, the holes, the pipes, my family standing in the ruins of their own greed. Then start selling things, I said. You have 30 days. If I don't get paid, I'll file a mechanic's lien. The title gets frozen. You can't sell, refinance, or transfer the deed until I'm paid in full. The lien will show up on every title search. It'll be right there, for everyone to see. You tried to rip off your contractor, and she had to drag you to court just to get paid. You wouldn't, my mother whispered. I already have the paperwork ready. David Ross is waiting for my call. I climbed into my truck. Through the windshield, I caught Asher standing up, face twisted with rage, shouting and waving his arms around. I couldn't hear a word over the diesel engines, and, honestly, I didn't care. I put the truck in gear and led my convoy out. 10 vehicles, full of reclaimed assets, crawling their way out of a neighborhood where people had mistaken love for leverage. The rest of the afternoon turned into organized chaos. We inspected every tree, logged, and moved them to temporary spots at the warehouse. The koi went to our climate-controlled tanks, where they'd stay until I found a new home for them, maybe a client project, maybe my next showroom. The irrigation equipment got cleaned, checked, packed away. By evening, everything was accounted for. Not a single plant lost. Not a single system damaged. We ended up in the warehouse break room, pizza and beer all around. It felt good, everyone relaxed, laughing, proud. They'd pulled off something complicated and made it look easy. I handed out $300 cash bonuses, one for each person, straight from my own wallet. I thanked every one of them. Marcus hung back after everyone left. He leaned in the doorway, arms folded, and watched me mess with the spreadsheets. You okay? He asked. I'm fine. That's not what I asked. I stopped typing. Marcus knew me. He'd seen me build this thing from nothing, a rented garage, just two of us, now a multi-million-dollar firm with a wait list. I lost my family today, I said, barely above a whisper. You lost people who never valued you. That's not the same. I nodded, because if I spoke, I'd lose it. You did the right thing, he said. Professional. Legal. Fair. You gave them a contract. They signed. They broke it. You enforced it. That's not revenge, Elara. That's business. Then why does it feel like revenge? Because they want you to feel guilty for standing up for yourself. Because for 42 years, they taught you to put their needs ahead of your own dignity. He pushed off the doorframe. Don't let them rewrite this story. You're not the villain. You're just the first one who refused to be the victim. When he left, I sat there staring at the spreadsheet. $475,000 in assets recovered. $225,000 in debt owed. Everything documented, legal, by the book. Still, everything felt empty. I went home and poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the balcony, and watched the city lights. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing calls from my mother, my father, Chloe, even Asher. I let them all go to voicemail. Then, at 3:15 a.m., the night just shattered. My phone went off, blaring, not the usual security ping, but the emergency system I'd set up at the warehouse. Motion detected. Perimeter breach. Gate B's been hit. I was dressed and out the door within minutes, white-knuckled on the wheel, city lights streaking past. The warehouse was a 15-minute drive. I made it in 9. The place was lit up like noon. Floodlights blazed over the loading dock. Someone was hunched at the door to the fish facility, bolt cutters working furiously. I didn't have to guess, it was Chloe. I slammed my truck into park just as the police showed up, sirens flashing blue and red. Chloe spun around, shielding her eyes. A gallon of bleach sat at her feet. Police. Drop the cutters. I stepped out, watching as 2 officers moved in, guns drawn. Chloe dropped the cutters with a crash, screaming about fairness. They had her cuffed and pressed to the patrol car in seconds. I walked over. Officer Morrison looked at the bleach, at the cut fence, then at me. Miss Thorne, he said. She cut through the fence and tried to break into the fish tanks with that bleach. That's premeditated destruction of property. My stomach dropped. Those fish are worth 75 grand. Bleach would have killed them, ugly, painful deaths. Chloe saw me. She lunged against the cuffs, face twisted. You ruined my life. I'll kill those fish. I'll kill everything you love. You're drunk, I said, flat as cardboard. She is, Morrison agreed. We're arresting her for trespassing, burglary tools, and attempted felony vandalism. Plus DUI. She drove here. He paused, looked at me. She's your sister. You sure you want to press full charges? I stared at the bottle of bleach and pictured those coy, mouths opening and closing, desperate for air. I told myself I took back what was mine, fair and square. She tried to destroy it, plain and simple. Press every charge, I told them. When they shoved Chloe into the cruiser, I stood outside in the cold and felt a weird, sharp kind of peace settle over me. The next morning, everything had fallen apart. Asher's firm fired him, bad press, bad open house. They wanted nothing to do with it. Investors bailed, not a single one left. My parents scrambled for bail money, staring down a $225,000 debt. That evening, David Ross called. They want to settle, he said. $85,000. No. They say that's all they've got. Then I file the lien tomorrow. Full amount, no installments. The house stays frozen until I get every cent, understood, David said. I'll file it in the morning. St. Patrick's Day hit. The city buzzed with that strange, electric hush of a mid-March evening. My penthouse glowed with soft light and laughter, not relatives, but my crew. 62 people who ran cranes, hauled steel, got the work done. We weren't celebrating the holiday. We were celebrating a quarter nobody thought we could pull off. I walked around, handing out envelopes. Tom opened his, saw the extra $7,500, and his eyes filled up. Marcus lifted his beer. To Elara Thorne. To the team, I said, raising my glass. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing on the kitchen counter. Missed call. Mom. 12 times. Missed call. Dad. 8. Then a text from Mom. Please, Elara. Drop the charges. Asher left her. She's alone in jail. We can't pay the lien. We are family. I stared at the words, just for a moment. Then I flipped the phone face down, picked up my wine, and left the kitchen behind. Out in the living room, laughter rolled on. I'd found my family, the people who saw my worth. Late May rolled in. My parents' house still had that crooked for sale sign out front, faded and ignored. Nobody wanted it. My mechanic's lien stuck to the title like a warning label. Lenders wouldn't touch it. The backyard stayed a muddy crater, no money to fix it. I stood on the balcony of a brand new Mediterranean-inspired resort I'd just finished designing, phone pressed to my ear. Elara, David Ross said. Their lawyer reached out. Your parents sold their antique furniture, scraped together $110,000. They want to settle. The debt is $225,000, I said, watching the sun drop behind the hills. That's all they have. Then they can sell the car or the house after they pay me. I don't negotiate with people who tried to steal from me, David. $225,000. Not a penny less. Understood, David said. I hung up and walked down to the resort's courtyard. The podocarpus trees I'd rescued stood in the best spots, lush, strong, putting down roots in good soil at last. They made it through the winter. So did I. I pressed my palm to the rough bark of the biggest tree. Sorry for the rough ride, I whispered, but you're safe now. Nobody's uprooting us again. We survived, and now it's our turn to grow.